Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Season 1, Episode 28 of Digital Dissection, where we take a closer and possibly unnecessary look at our favorite properties. This week, we're actually going to be sitting down with Jeff and Cory of the Switch the Envelope podcast. And what we're going to do is peel back a few layers to discuss nerd culture and where it began to turn a corner. Because if you've been a nerd for a long time, you know that it's hard out here for a bitch. So we're going to rip that open and start to determine when things started getting better for us.
Yeah, and in case you're still crawling out of that locker that some jock stuffed you in, and you've just found this podcast, how about you tell your friends how you found us if you got here on accident because, you're finally seeing the light of day. You can find us basically wherever podcasts are found on all those major carriers. But if you are, too cool for school, and you like podcasts before it was cool, you can find us on places like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or we have our own website and blog that you can check out. And you can read stuff that we are, going to be talking about. So please pay us a visit in all those, or, maybe not all those places, but at least one of those places. Give us a like, subscribe, comment, and if possible, review. And hey, buckle in, buckle up, or, get comfortable, whichever one you want to do, whether you're in the car or at your home, or if you're at work. Good job. You're doing great today, and I believe in you. And I hope you enjoy our interview today. Or not, it's not an interview, our conversation today with the gents at Switch the Envelope.
And honestly, if you're in a situation where you're needing to wear a seatbelt, just put it on. Usually takes a moment for everyone.
There we go.
No. All right, perfect. Well, folks, we're pretty active on Twitter. So from time to time, we have interactions with other podcasts. And if you've listened to some of our series, we've done some pretty comprehensive, joint episodes with folks. So really, it's another podcast here that we really appreciate getting to interact with. And they've actually featured some of our collaborations on their show too. So it's kind of nice that we've got this little indie podcast family that's growing in front of us. But we'd like to welcome Jeff and Cory of Switch the Envelope to the show. How are you guys doing?
Great. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, anytime. Chelsea will validate your parking later. Oh, so you just go ahead and talk to her. Yep. Mm-hmm.
We'll take care of that after we're done. Meet me out back.
I actually like to pay for my parking, so I'll let it be.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's fine.
Leave my ticket in the car. Shit. Are we allowed to curse on your show?
Oh yeah.
Feel free.
Ask that in the free.
Yep.
Right. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, guys, if you want to save the last 5 minutes, we can just curse straight through that until we hit the stop button.
Get it all out.
Yeah. You just get creative. You do what you want to do. But yeah, you know what? We, as part of our introduction, to our listeners here, we always love to hear a little bit about your show, and if you could tell us a little bit more about Switch the Envelope and how you guys got started.
Cory, I'll give that to you, man. You're the word maestro of our show.
That's not true at all, but
is that an official title, word maestro?
Yeah, the word maestro,
it's a solid one.
I have a t-shirt and everything. It's fine. We're a movie podcast. We talk about all things sort of cinema, cinematic history, Hollywood history. We also, switch envelopes. That is correcting Oscar mishaps of the past. Basically, we tell Hollywood where they went wrong.
Yeah, we believe that we know what they did wrong because we know better than they did.
Darn right.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Because we're movie fans.
Yes.
Yeah, they're too close to it. Mm-hmm. You're the right distance away.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because we're younger than most of them, we feel that we have just as far enough distance away that we have learned from the past.
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't you take the first 2 months of your show just to talk about The English Patient and how that was a problem?
Yeah, we did, incredible deep dives into the English Patient over the years. Yes, and why anybody would ever watch it.
Actually, I think our first episode was about how terrible The Shape of Water was. So,
Yeah, it was one of the earlier episodes. I like The Shape of Water. Jeff did not. We're often split.
Yeah, we did not. We did not agree on that.
We developed a sort of scientific method for determining, sort of which nominee or prospective nominee that we choose deserves to win the Oscar, and it's based off of 5 fingers, and it's very scientific.
It's a metric.
So yeah,
it's okay.
Our scoring metric, and it's gospel, it's science, and when we decide who should have really won an Oscar, then the internet needs to go into full force and change Wikipedia pages and steal the Oscars from the old winners and give them to the new winners. That's
the other part of our job is changing the Wikipedias and burglarizing actors' houses and taking their Oscars, giving them to the old
behind the curtain.
Interesting.
We don't keep them; we give them to the other actors or their estate.
Absolutely,
like Robin Hood.
Yeah, exactly.
For statues. Was there a conclusion that The Shape of Water should just been whatever its container is, since we go off of science?
Absolutely.
I can't help but notice that Jeff said "or their estate," which makes me wonder: are you guys killing the actors that shouldn't have won?
The last episode we did was like 1940. So I think we gave it to Clark Gable, and they had to give it to their family members. So
yeah. Well, I mean that's still pretty fun though. I mean I've had a chance to listen to a few of your episodes, and I appreciate the perspective and kind of doing what we do on this show too. Like we'll take a look back at not nearly as far as 1940 for some episodes, but other episodes we've gone back 5,000 years. So it's kind of a mixed bag. You never really know what you're going to get with us, which makes it really hard to market this show.
Yeah, it's either oddly topical or weirdly historical, and something to do with it.
Yeah,
and we like to do.
Oddly
we like to do all things movies, though. So we like to do. Sometimes we'll do like little short 15-minute documentaries on movies, and we'll call them Al's Useless Hollywood Facts. We like to also do technology, like innovations in cinema, which we've coined Cinnovations, which one day will be in the Oxford Dictionary.
TM.
And we try and just do different kinds of little episodes, mini episodes and stuff.
Yeah, I like that you're shooting straight for Oxford and just completely overriding Merriam-Webster. Those posers over there.
Yeah,
Merriam-Webster.
Yep, second-rate dictionary.
Exactly. We go straight for the source.
Yeah.
Straight for the source.
Yeah, those loafer-wearing cucks. We don't want anything to do with them. Yeah. You know what?
Yep.
So that's really cool because I was going to ask you a little bit about just the format of the show, but I guess based on your current season, are there any upcoming shows that folks should be on the look for?
Our next episode.
Yeah, always the next episode is the best.
Yes.
Episode,
Right?
Well, we just put out an episode with podcaster Adam Roach. We really like that one. That was because he's one of our favorite podcasters. Actually, he does the show Secret History of Hollywood, and he's in production for a new movie with the. Well, Cory knows more about it. I'll let Cory talk about that.
Well, yeah, he signed a development deal for his entire podcast, The Secret History of Hollywood, and he's now a film producer. So he went from film podcaster, film documentarian, to then now film producer to produce films of his podcast episodes. Basically.
Well, that's the dream.
Very cool.
I think that's what. Yeah, good for him. That's awesome.
So that was a really cool episode.
Yeah, we had a chance to interview him in depth about what he's going through right now. Like he actually said, "Yeah, it's a dream."
Yeah.
so the next episode we're interviewing
Jack Seaver McDonald. Yeah, I can see you struggling. Yeah.
Thank you, Cory.
He's an actor on Netflix's Never Have I Ever.
Yeah, I'm familiar. Yeah,
he plays Eric Peterson, which is sort of like a reoccurring guest on that particular show, and we had a lot of fun with him talking 90s movies, and we played a quiz game that we, very originally called Switch the Envelope as well.
Well, very cool, very cool. Just before we move on, for the folks that are looking to find you out there, what are your handles? What's the not your love handles? I'm sorry. I'm a thick boy over here, so I'm always thinking about that. But yeah. What are your handles? How do we find you?
As opposed to us who have, I mean, we are 6-pack ready over here.
Super ripped.
Dad bod city over here.
You can't see it, but it's like lens flare city because the oil that is like reflecting off these guys' abs. I can't see shit over there.
No,
I just see
this movie.
I'm shirtless.
Me too.
Awesome. Well, yeah. So, what are your like social media handles and all that good stuff for folks to find you?
Jeff, take that one.
We are on Instagram at Switch the Envelope and on Twitter at Switch Envelope because Twitter sucks and they don't let us put the full name on there. And you can get all our media and everything at Switch the Envelope. Eventually, we are going to put up our Patreon, but we're not going to do that right now because we don't have really that much. But
that's a .com at the end of Switch the Envelope. SwitchTheEnvelope.com for all of your.
I figured everyone knows what Switch the Envelope. We're not doing like a .org or a .gov because we don't work for the government. We are a .gov.
Yeah, makes sense. We're also struggling what to do with the Patreon eventually. Right now, we're just kind of torn between Chelsea's old Pog collection and
just feet pics, like thousands of feet pics. That's all we got.
All there, and that's all Mark's feet, by the way. It's just different angles, different varying levels of zoom. It's just those two things.
If you're gonna go feet pics, you'll get 10,000 subscribers immediately.
Mark, this is what I said.
Got to get that low hanging fruit,
Yeah.
And Pog collection, man. If you got stompers, dude, that would be awesome.
Yeah, man. I'm stepping on tomatoes. We're gonna have me do all kinds of weird stuff. So you just
got any metal slammers? Got any metal slammers? Those are the best.
Yeah, those are for the top tier Patreon members. You get Chelsea's Metal Slammers.
You know what? That's as good a segue as any because the reason why we collected together today was to cover a topic that's kind of near and dear to all of our hearts. And that's to kind of talk about this changing tide of nerd culture, some of its origins, and kind of how we all got swept up in it.
How this fellowship came to be of the nerd.
Yes, one of us will never speak to the other member of the fellowship ever again. We'll only utter one word the entire series. Sorry, that's a little Frodo and Legolas reference there for y'all. But either way, why don't we kick off this journey of ours? And you know what? The first place I was able to actually pin down some references to just the definition of nerd was during a very fairly troubling time for the world, this nation. We're kind of in the middle of a world war, the sequel to the first World War.
Okay.
Yeah, and this little term would get floated around called NERT, like NERT, right? Like someone's trying to draw a Nerf, but they ran out of space or they ran out of ink.
I figured this was also like the Manitowoc natives who would say like up north, and like, oh, you're one of them nerds, aren't you? There,
gotta go up nerd there.
You know what? It's like self-loathing, right? Wisconsinites love making fun of Wisconsinites. We're just so good at it. Yeah. And then everybody else
do it before someone else can. So
exactly, and we make it pretty easy for ourselves. So
I'm hesitant to do it in front of your faces. I'll abstain from doing my up north accent.
It's good because the definition of nerd actually, like, it was meant to be used to indicate that someone was either incredibly crazy, incredibly stupid, or in general was just very nutty. Which does describe at least 2/3 of our podcast quite well, and I won't tell you which people. But
each of you, right? Crazy, stupid, and nutty. Right?
Yeah. Now we get to fight over which one's which. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. We're like the three monkeys, the things, except the see or no, see no, speak no. It's just crazy, stupid, or generally nutty.
Yeah, if one of the monkeys was an overweight Filipino man, I think I've called that one. But yeah, this would be kind of the jumping off point for the earliest recorded, like nerd references, or at least the term, right?
Oh, okay. So was it like these nerds were just incredibly good at math? That guy, he's supposed to be stupid because he's so smart. I hate that guy. Darn nerd.
Honestly, not quite, because the term nerd wouldn't actually describe anything like what we're used to seeing for several years. Like the earliest like printed evidence of the word nerd actually occurred in a Dr. Seuss book in 1950 called "If I Ran the Zoo," and obviously, if I ran the zoo, I'd probably make some different societal messages that I'd put in there. But this Dr. Seuss book, I'm going to incorrectly describe it as a very dark, very adult book where a young man wants to free all the animals of the zoo because they're, quote, not good enough. Bastard.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, this guy's kind of a dick, this little boy that hates the zoo. But yeah, this is often credited as the first printed work that featured the word nerd. And it would just be used to describe an imaginary animal that he thought up that was cooler than anything else that existed at that time.
Oh.
So the nerd is cool in this story.
Okay. That's a quick switch from the 40s, though. That's nice.
Moving on from that, though, we're going to kind of move at a breakneck speed here because the definition would change fairly quickly. In 1951, there are publications that described nerd as people who were either a drip or a square. Now, this is 1950s culture we're talking about. Square, I get, but drip, that just sounds thirsty to me. I don't know. I don't know what that means.
I think it means like somebody who is not fast running water, right? They're just a slow drip.
That's pretty good. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, like some of the like cool lingo, the what do they call that? Slang in the 50s is pretty out there and wacky. Like they were just like, we discovered language. Like we're just gonna make up tons of things. I feel like that there's a lot of slang language that originates from the 50s, and a lot of it is weird as fuck.
Cory, I'm going to put up some faux intelligence and some faux history right now.
All right, I'll get to it.
I'm going to say that in the 50s, a lot of dads were plumbers. And because so many dads were plumbers, specifically plumbers, and because so many dads were plumbers, what they would do is when they would come home and their sons were acting like nerds, what they would do is say, "You're acting like a drip." Because they would just come home from working on a pipe that was just dripping, but it wasn't working, right? So they wanted their sons to work like regular boys. Cool. So they'd call them drips, and that's the origin of the word drip. That's some faux knowledge for you.
That makes sense to me because
I
I
stand
definitely
behind
thought
that.
that's hilarious.
Yeah. I'm just imagining some like Chicago dude with pants up to his armpits. He's got Dapper Dan in his hair, and
exactly.
Yeah, he comes home and he's like, "Yeah, you stupid son of a bitch, you fucking drip, get your ass up, right fucking now." Yeah, that could work.
With the Chicago accent behind it, that's magic right there.
People love it. It might have been that so many of the fellas coming home from the war were laying so much pipe that if you were a drip,
they actually
you
had
worth,
the drip. Oh no, I thought you were gonna go somewhere else. With that.
Oh yeah, maybe they had the drip, and that was a no. So
Yeah.
it becomes.
Well, I mean, just like the wars of the past, man. Syphilis was usually the soldier's disease. It makes sense to me. We're off on a good start.
Well, it's not a show until someone talks about an STD.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Geez, we've mentioned space AIDS. Syphilis has come up many times. So yeah, I mean, you guys are right at home. I feel like we've been here since the beginning.
I'm sorry, space AIDS.
Oh yeah.
Space AIDS. Huh?
Space
Yep,
AIDS.
just like regular AIDS, but from space.
Yeah.
Is that a real thing? I hope not. Now I'm terrified
Probably.
of space AIDS. Great.
Yeah.
Cory's eyes are as wide as mine were the first time it was uttered on this show because I'm like, AIDS that survived the vacuum of space?
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
If the nothingness of space won't kill it, then nothing will. Space AIDS is unstoppable.
It's indestructible.
Well,
what's going on those space launches we've been having?
Right? What's going on in the ISS?
What are they doing on those?
Well,
launches?
I mean, I think we all are familiar with the most recent rocket that was sent to space and exactly how space got AIDS.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Jeff Bezos.
Patient one.
That rocket was very unprotected.
Weren't we all
Austin Powers.
unprotected?
I saw the picture.
Trend- yeah. Yep.
It's not sheep.
Austin Powers trending again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Who knew Austin Powers would predict an asshole billionaire going to space in a dick-shaped rocket? That would be a real thing that would happen.
Yeah. Hey guys, 2021 bingo. Who had asshole?
Yeah.
Dick-shaped rocket.
The guy was even bald too. Like seriously, he was just one weird scar away from being Dr. Evil anyway.
Did anybody check the hull for a cat?
And was his first ship a big boy?
Yeah.
And he scrapped that idea because it looked ridiculous, so we went with the dick ship.
It's not aerodynamic, surprisingly. Well, tell you what, talking about we're traveling very quickly here. We're going to shoot from the 50s to the 60s because the term nerd would spread all the way across the United States. It'd show up all over, and it would even end up in Scotland somehow. The Scottish were using it. No one can explain that. Yeah, you go up the Drippy, Squire. Yeah, they got over there, man. But this was the time when it would start to resemble what we know as the definition that kind of survived into the late 80s, early 90s, where nerds were bookworms. They're kind of socially inept, and they're those that relied more on just being accurate about all topics, right?
Okay.
Think you're a traditional gatekeeper of knowledge, right? So that's
and it would still be another 20 years, 30 years before Sesame Street tried to reclaim the word square by saying it was in fact hip to be a square. But
or Huey
until
Lewis.
then, the Scottish are making
Sesame Street and Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis, yeah.
Hip to be a square.
Oh, God damn it, Joe. Sometimes Joe he's whiter than non-dairy creamer, guys. And that's why we love him. But yeah, you know what though? Okay, so we're continuing on our nerd journey here, and there would be a fellow by the name of Philip K. Dick, aptly named, of course. Now, he would do what's essentially the Mean Girls version of trying to get something off the ground like fetch. Okay, he would actually create this term called nerd, but instead of the N-E-R-D that we're familiar with, we would get variations of the spelling as N-U-R-D, G-N-U-R-D.
No, he tried to gnome it.
Yeah, and K-N-U-R-D.
It's so sci-fi.
And he tried to knee it. That's weird.
Yeah, they did. They really did. Yeah, knerd it, knife it, the same thing.
It's
Yeah.
how robots
Nerd
dream
it.
it.
Do you think at one point someone was like, "Hey, Philip K. Dick, I'm gonna have to have a nice, good, long, hard dick with you about this spelling of nerd," because that used to be a term about like you have to have a good long talk about something was a good dicking. I found this out by looking at an old Avengers comic, and Iron Man's like, hey Cap, I think we'd have a good long hard dick from Shellhead here about what you just did. Kendrick's like, yeah, maybe I do, Shellhead, maybe I do. I'm like, oh no. I suddenly got the wrong copy of Avengers.
General chagrin and retro dickery.
Yeah, you know what? This is what I think was hilarious about this time in our nerd timeline. This is during the 60s and 70s, and these are the guys that were at MIT and RPI, otherwise known as the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. So these are smart dudes that are trying to come up with different ways to establish the term nerd. And
the social aspect of it is where they stumbled, and that just would hurt the nerd for many generations to come.
So like a group of actually really smart people tried to label themselves nerds as like a badge of honor, and then it turned out to be this thing that bullies would yell at like book smart kids in high schools for being too smart.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's interesting. They shot themselves in the
That's
foot with that.
awesome.
Yeah. Yep. Just like trying to use too short of a bungee cord to attach your fishing poles to a 91 Ford Explorer in 1998 in Boise, Idaho, you just don't do it. And that may
I've
have
not lived
been
that
me.
experience, but I'll take
be
your word for it.
Yeah. It backfires, and it's very painful. And you're not sure if you can have children. So that's why we don't listen to this fella. aptly named Philip K. Dick. He just didn't work out.
I wonder if there were like early like kids that were getting bullied that when they heard nerd thrown back at them, they were like, "You're damn right, I'm a nerd. Those people at MIT are the pinnacle."
Actually,
I heard your tone. You didn't put the G in front of it, okay?
Yeah. It's spelled GNURD. I read Philip K. Dick.
And that was the first kid to be stuffed into a locker.
Yeah.
He was not prepared for the hard dicking of that scenario. But to your point, Cory, yeah, we're getting into really using nerd as a negative connotation. So for those of you who remember Happy Days, the 70s interpretation of the 50s, they pretty much used nerd and threw it around all the time. I mean, it was just as prevalent as the leather jackets, the motorcycles, the jumping over pools of sharks. I mean, it was
poor Pom,
absolutely there.
Oh, Fonzarelli.
Yeah, which, speaking of
The
Wisconsin
hero of
people,
Milwaukee.
yes.
yeah.
We have a statue of him downtown in Milwaukee that
yeah, you do.
Yeah. And it was sculpted by the father of our guest Josh Sawyer last week, who's the design director for Obsidian Entertainment. So his dad actually made like all of the bronze sculptures in that area. So it's kind of a cool reference. We'll post the Fonz. All right, the bronze Fonz. We'll put that dude up.
Bronze Fonz, I love it. Does it have a plaque underneath it that just says "Hey"?
No, but it is in a very echoey area. So whenever you walk past it, you just hear it through the city.
Yeah, the people that live above that statue, there's like a super high suicide rate in that apartment complex for some reason, and we can't figure it out. So,
and is it suicide, or are they just trying to jump the river on motorcycles?
Or are they just trying to fix the jukebox?
Yeah. These are the real questions.
Yeah.
But is there a bronze statue of Chachi? That's what I want.
No.
You need to get that started. You need to start a petition right now for Chachi.
Let me put Joni on the opposite side of the city.
Because
we got to separate them.
And they're like pointing to each other.
No, Joni never loved Chachi. She never loved Chachi. Forget about her.
She
didn't love Chachi.
She did for one season.
We're going to put a poll up at the end of this episode. Are you Team Chachi or Team Joni? Let us know in the comments.
Team Joni all the way. Chachi's a doof.
That's how we get the term Chach, right?
Yeah.
It's because of Chach.
Fucking Chach. Yeah.
Well,
Joni had that wonderful perm. Oh, so glorious.
Oh, man, you are awful. You're an awful person, Cory.
Practically hump that haircut.
Yeah.
That got weird.
It always gets weird. It always gets weird. But tell you what, there's a couple questions that started to pop up though. So we're making our way closer towards the modern age. We got a little bit of work to do yet. Now, there would be a gentleman by the name of Paul Graham who would make an essay called "Why Nerds Are Unpopular." And so, what this essay?
Paul? What the hell?
Yeah.
He's the
shut up, Graham.
Yeah, with a G.
Yeah.
Graham. Yeah. Sorry,
do you have a silent G? No.
Or perhaps a silent K in front of that G, Paul.
Well, but you know what, guys? Oddly enough, Graham's essay would actually state what the stereotypical reasons were for referring to people as nerds, and he actually viewed it as a socially neutral term. So the connotations weren't actually negative through his eyes of using the term nerd. Really, though, how he described it was that you're neither loved nor despised for being a nerd. However, your lack of popularity most likely stems from focusing on that which makes you unpopular. So you literally don't have time for activities that popularity requires you to have.
And
so
also
you can wash over us.
Your mom or something, like, or that you have deep-seated daddy issues with, like, what, where was he going with that?
You're
can neither
just
loved
tell.
nor.
He was just writing it and just crying the whole time.
We got a glimpse on how Paul Graham feels about Paul Graham, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure when it was sent off to the editor, it was just like runny ink from the tears that kept falling down. And every
Let's
time,
go
like,
on.
could you revise or retype this? He's like, yeah, sure, I'll redo it. And same thing every time. Just tears.
You're
Let's go on Amazon.
You
Yeah.
can't do anything that makes you popular because you like other things.
Lots to
I don't
unpack
have
there, buddy.
He calls up his friend after he's done this essay, and he's like, I just wrote this essay, and it feels like I got cat piss in my eyes. I've been crying for like 2 hours.
I'm gonna go jump on the Fonzie statue.
Exactly, Cory. Exactly.
Well, what is okay, but what is popularity, nerdiness persevering, right? That's the real question I think we've got left with Paul Graham.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately though, I think yeah, right. Yeah, well, this is kind of where we get to that point now where I think most of us are familiar with, the depiction of nerds and what most people think of when they envision a quote unquote nerd. So we're kind of getting on the doorstep of literally the revenge of the nerds. And yep. And now we're starting to get into sitcoms like Family Matters that shows Steve Urkel before he became Stefan Urkel after his let me get to become a snack machine was developed.
He's trying to make Laura thirsty.
Oh, she
I think
was.
he succeeded.
Yeah.
Very much so. That show got real horny real quick on some of those episodes.
Yeah.
Well,
I think I stopped watching it by then.
I think it was horny
I was out
enough
by
when
then.
you have a guy who already has like 8 kids in his house. Like that guy was clearly,
True.
you
Although one disappears. Like one just disappears.
never to be seen or heard from again.
She
I'd
didn't
never
do
knew
well in
that.
the focus group, so she got voted out of the family.
That's right.
It's because
Tried
that
has
dad
spoken.
was out. That dad was always trying to help John McClane out at the Nakatomi Towers. So he had to do something.
Yeah. And then he had to go get the Ghostbusters out of jail because the mayor told him to.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
And then
Yep.
eventually he is a principal at high school with the actor's name. In
That's true.
Invincible.
Well, maybe we should do a bonus episode where we just focus on Carl Winslow because there's a lot of things left unexplored there.
Oh yeah.
But this would be the golden age of what I would call the pocket protector. These are the nerds that have the off-color glasses with the sports strap that everybody envies.
And of course they've taped the nose because that's broken several times over.
Yeah, why couldn't they ever fix their glasses? That always drove me nuts. Like,
Yeah, with
fix
all
your
of their
expensive.
smarts, like you're just going with athletic tape. What are you doing?
I mean, they're not wizards,
Like,
guys.
No,
They can't say Oculus
come on.
Reparo.
Mom
No, but
takes
they
me
can, like,
once a
melt
year to get
something.
my glasses. That's all I got. You get one.
Yeah, can't you just go down to the lens crafters and get new glasses, guys?
Insurance only allows for one new pair of frames every year,
Yes.
or every other year. I think some insurances.
It
Our
definitely
insurance
depends.
system is. I'm going off topic.
Oh, you're totally good. We kind of forced ourselves down that path.
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's worth exploring, right? Because on the
Yep.
subject of glasses, this is where we would get some of these absolutely ridiculous mid to late 90s movies where all nerds have to do to become hot, just remove those glasses. Just pop them off, let that hair down, right? Who knew?
Yeah, Chelsea, you used to be in an ocular profession, so I'm
did.
sure you saw that all the time. Like, look at this
Yeah.
ugly son of a bitch, and then ooh,
Well, except for
Oh,
I
look at
did
mine.
the opposite. Really attractive people came in. I put glasses on them. They left looking terrible. Exactly.
And
Oh,
Created nerds.
No.
so, Cory, someone just took over your camera, and I don't know who it is.
Yeah,
because
I'm ready to talk about nerds, guys. I put on my glasses.
for the
Cory, you turn into Cornelius. What the hell happened?
I know. Hold on. Let me go into my Steve Urkel transmogrifier and pull my glasses
for those
off
of you
and-
watch,
Oh, hey.
Oh,
Hey.
ooh, hey.
for
How
those
you
of you,
doing?
like going to the high school dance.
Yeah.
Hey.
Now I'm popular. Yeah, it's that easy. Put your hair down, take off your glasses, and if you're a lady in film, smile more because
Yeah.
that's a
Oh,
Yeah.
Ooh.
unfortunately, and you know
Didn't
what?
work for Tori Spelling.
No, it didn't.
Oh.
I'm just saying, she was
Oh.
in Saved by the Bell with the glasses that took him off for 90210. She kind of still stayed the same. Just
Yeah.
my own personal thoughts. but-
She's a paradox. Yeah,
She doesn't follow the rules. You know what I mean?
she's a rebel, Debbie.
Well, speaking of people that either didn't know what the rules were or had a really hard time understanding like what was acceptable in society. In 2010, we would end up getting what was called the Journal of International and Intercultural Communication. What they were doing was they wanted to rate who is most likely to be considered nerdy by race.
Why?
What?
The fuck
This
the
is-
point of that?
Yeah, this is a demographic that just shouldn't exist.
This is just, again, a bunch of people or a small group of people out there trying to prove that there are people all elsewhere that are nerdier than they are. That's all this is. Like, I'm not the nerdiest person. I'm going to do all this research and submit an article to a journal, but I'm going to prove that there's a demographic that's way worse than me.
Probably the
You
French.
know,
You're gonna out nerd everybody to prove that you're not as nerdy as this demographic.
Yes.
well,
That's a huge actually moment. Yeah.
and I wish that's where it ended, but they actually released the official rankings.
Who is
And
it?
Oh.
Who
in
is
first
it?
in fourth place, we have African Americans. In third place, we have non-white Hispanics. In second place, we have whites. Sorry, whites, you got the silver
Damn
medal.
it.
Always.
In first place, Asian Americans, rated as the nerdiest by the races.
Riding nerdy.
Huh. Well.
Yep. I don't
That makes you feel
understand how.
uncomfortable.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it though?
I feel
I'm
very
ha-
uncomfortable with this.
I am half Asian. Okay, I'm half Asian. The half Asian part of me is like, I don't even know how to process that. Okay, I don't
mean,
even know.
I think this was definitely a group of white people that made this list.
Yeah,
Honestly,
because they're
but-
second.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying. They're second.
Mhm. They're just trying to like push like we're not the nerdiest, we swear.
Yeah, look at them over there. God.
Oh, you know, that's interesting. Maybe we'll ask the JOI AIC that question on Twitter. Let's force them to be responsible for this.
That came out in
Um,
2010.
2010.
The what?
Yeah.
That's not long ago enough for something that racist.
Yeah,
No.
100%.
This
Well-
can't only be 11 years removed. Like
And
Oh.
honestly, guys, not even a year later, we would get another stereotype essay that would be written by Ron Eglash that was named "Race, Sex, and Nerds: From Black Geeks to Asian American Hipsters." Like,
Woof.
I don't know how these are supposed to be "quote unquote" educational, but like I'm reading the room right now. It's like we're trying to talk about nerd culture, and people out there are just trying to make it the most uncomfortable fucking topic of all time. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Like, is by that title was he trying to make it like, hey, nerds are cool? Yeah, they're like different subsets, and I don't know, race,
I'm
sex,
not
and nerds,
sure.
or is sex in that gender specific sex? And then from Black Geeks to Asian American Hipsters makes it sound like, we're categorizing all the cool kids now. Like, everybody has their own little lane, which is also problematic. But like, is that where he was trying to go? Old Ron.
Did they use the
I
cast
don't know
of
what Ronald was doing.
Yeah.
Did they use the cast of Revenge of the Nerds as the as a specific like demographic for this?
There's just the
You know,
spectrum. They
yeah.
lined the nerds up like, all right, so it's
Yeah, it was
lying
like-
somewhere between Booger and
Lamar is Lamar like going, like, what the hell? This is
Here's what the thing is. Okay, like obviously these are uncomfortable and kind of cringy to look back at now, right?
yeah, a little bit.
But
Just
at least they are somewhat thought provoking for us to tear them apart and look at them now and understand where we've come from. This is just a really weird time for the whole nerd timeline, and I don't understand like what Cory said. How this is 2010? Like, that's not the world I remember living in 2010. But either way, so that actually kind of brings us up to the modern age, though, from a definition standpoint, from an exploration standpoint. So here's what I think would be a fun point to explore now is kind of when we think this tide starts turning from where, no matter what some people may say about the nerd term not having negative connotations, I still think it did, at least until the early 90s here. What is everybody else's thoughts on that?
I would say through the 90s still.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
think
it
in the
can
90s
now
didn't.
even. Like it can still today. It just depends on if you embrace it or not.
It doesn't carry as much weight, I think, now, but it still can be negative. I mean, any sort of term can be perceived, negatively, depends on the context. And like it said, like, there was a lot of pushback in the 90s, sure, with, we talked about it, right at the beginning, like content creation. People who were nerdy or, sort of classified as nerdy started making movies, started, pushing television show ideas and, putting nerd culture in more of a humanized way, that sort of breaks it down, like Kevin Smith in the mid 90s was like pushing some of those geeky, nerdy barriers down by openly just having, 5 minutes of dialogue about, Marvel characters, for having, Stan Lee show up in his film and expecting everybody in the theater to know who that was.
Yeah.
Or having Jason Mewes, no, it was Jason Mewes. Who
Jason
played
Lee?
Brody in? Jason Lee. Just flip out over like superhero sex facts to Stan Lee in a movie.
Yeah, all the 90s, it's not that they changed the word. It's not that nerd didn't carry as much weight. It's just that everybody was a nerd in the movies. Even in the American Pie movies, the guys that are starring in American Pie, they're nerds. They're not cool, with the exception of the guy that played the Ox character. All the other guys are total nerds in that movie. I mean, the main character of that movie he's a complete dork. And that's why everyone was able to like relate to him. So you had the show Freaks and Geeks, and when that went off the air, people almost rioted, right? And that's a movie, or that's a TV show about just, that's not about any popular kids. It's about dorky kids, and those kids from that movie ended up going out and making all the other movies that we're going to talk about, right? So, so you had Superbad, and those kids were all dorks in Superbad. So
what? McLovin wasn't like the coolest person on the planet?
Absolutely not, man.
I read that movie entirely wrong.
No, but you had like throughout the whole 90s, you had great movies that even Cory and I were talking about this before. Like
we were arguing about it before.
We were arguing about this before.
Cory
has some interesting ideas, but Pauly Shore movies and Adam Sandler movies also. Those movies they don't portray cool guys. They portray guys who are kind of nerdy and kind of
crazy, stupid, or nutty.
Yeah, but they're not perfect. That's right. Yeah,
that's
exactly
the
what the original definition.
Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Encino Man, crazy, stupid, and nutty. Also with Brendan Fraser.
As a caveman who's oddly the most educated one of the group.
Yeah, so.
But isn't that interesting though, that the seed that plants with the underdogs that kind of win the day out? I mean, this would basically plant the seed for why like the Guardians of the Galaxy are so easy to get behind, because these are people that typically aren't depicted as heroic, right? They're the I mean, plucky characters became obviously much more prevalent later on, but like that's the way I always kind of viewed it, is like, well, we've got the seed here now that the heroes of a property can be, guys that don't wear underwear over their suit with a cape,
Yeah, just a nice little scrawny farm boy who's a bit of a cockeyed optimist. And that's Star Wars.
Well, speaking of which, okay, so I'm a marketing guy. That's what I did in college outside of, getting absolutely wasted and eating so much pizza.
That's all marketing is, just eating pizza and getting wasted.
That's all it is.
100%.
Get into marketing.
Man, I picked the wrong profession.
Yep. And especially when you have lactose intolerance, you are a marketer because you tell everyone about your lactose intolerance. So trust me, I've put the message out there a few times.
Have I not mentioned my lactose intolerance yet? Oh, okay.
Oh. No, but you tell everybody about your gluten freeness. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, free. You gotta my celiac.
Yeah. Oh, can you tell me what's in this? Oh no. Can you find someone who does? Thank you. Yeah.
Just a disclaimer. No offense meant to anybody who actually has celiac. It's just all the posers out there that are,
Well, the people who think it's a
claiming to have an
dieting
allergy.
fad instead of
no.
it's like it's not going to help you get skinnier. It's just some people can't actually process gluten, and that's why we ask for it to not be in some places, and you're an idiot.
Yeah, you're just dumb.
You know what? We're gonna call them gluten nerds, but with the GNURD. That's what you guys are gonna be now.
They're
That's what you
gluten
get.
nerds. Gluten nerds.
Well, okay, so we're kind of on the doorstep of the late 90s though, right? So we kind of pulled back from 2010's absolutely ridiculous road stop. But we're at a point where, speaking of marketing, okay, for those of us who experienced the Star Wars prequel trilogy, as well as the extended edition when Star Wars kind of came out of this slumber
With
and is
more
suddenly
rocks.
in front of more rocks. Yes. Yeah. More rocks, more tentacles coming out of a butthole on the ground. Like this
Big hit
was
in Japan, that one.
it's like, hey, boss, we got so many of our tapes selling in Japan, and I just
Yeah,
can't quite figure it
We're
out.
not sure why Return of the Jedi is just huge. Just
lit.
huge
Yeah.
in Japan.
We have some notes too. Can the tentacles go back into the butthole? Is that something we can CG in there, George? Just for the Japanese market.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Well, that was unexpected, but I'm happy we went there. But you know what though? Think about where you were when those movies came out, because there are some people who lived, almost 20 years after Star Wars came out that maybe didn't see something as genre bending as this, or maybe they didn't see the pop culture phenomena that, kind of came out of that. And the reason why I'm using the prequel trilogy as kind of a kicking off point for this is because it would end up being kind of step one in a multi-step process of us just getting blown away by some massive, like pop culture defining releases. So,
Okay, so it's like step 1, release the prequels. Step 2,
Profit.
Step 3, profit.
oh, there's more steps, man. For one, we would have, Lord of the Rings come out a few years later, right? We get that good old fellowship we referenced earlier.
Yes.
They walk for 9 hours.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the most,
Yeah,
and not even like speed walking either. It's not like a bunch of moms out there getting that.
No, it's a
Mordor.
slow walk. They lose their horses pretty quick,
Mhm.
and they walk really slow.
Sometimes one of them is invisible.
Yeah.
So Jeff is probably a big fan of Clerks 2, where there's only one return, and it's of the Jedi.
Even the trees walked in those movies, man.
I actually love Clerks too, but
Clerks 2 is great.
Well, but seriously though, just stop and think for a minute here. So Lord of the Rings comes out in 2001, I believe, is when the Fellowship came out. We have the Spider-Man movies, which are, I mean, they got Josie Scott, they got Chad Kroeger just belting out tones in the top of the rooftops in New York City. I mean, seriously.
And those first 2 movies were legit. And then the third movie gave us one scene that is the pinnacle of weird emo nerd in cinema. That is
Yes.
Peter Parker being emo evil and dancing and pointing. Oh,
It's beautiful.
Brilliant.
It's poetry. It's poetry,
is.
Joe.
No.
That's what
Yep.
that was.
how he didn't get a
Absolute
statue for that, beyond me. Beyond me doesn't get a statue.
I guess to Josh Sawyer's dad, if he's listening, maybe start
Oh my
making
God.
that bronze statue of Tobey Maguire, because someone's going to want it after this. But seriously,
Cory and
though,
I argue all the time over emo Spider-Man.
in genius or stupid?
Not a fan.
oh,
Not
Oh, it was terrible. It was terrible.
I've never even seen it. I didn't even want to watch it, but
Oh my god!
I just give Cory
I mean,
shit about it.
all of the
Yeah.
internet things that have spawned because of emo Spider-Man. Like my favorite one I think I've seen is emo Spider-Man replacing Darth Maul in Phantom
Yes.
Menace. Oh,
yes.
gorgeous.
Do the memes make it worth it?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
I think they do. I think they do.
Oh,
No.
Corey's been brought to tears.
You're right. Like that first Spider-Man movie was glorious. I think
Yeah.
that is more significant towards launching sort of nerd acceptance or whatever than the Star Wars prequels, because there isn't
They're not
like a depiction of nerds. Well, yeah, that, but like there isn't like a depiction of nerds in Star Wars in a traditional sense, right? Like Peter Parker is, like his field trip was to a bio lab. Like there's nothing more nerdier than that, right? Like
he might have like a card carrying nerd member.
Like he is the uber comic book nerd, right? There's a nerd in comics. It's Peter Parker, and he becomes fucking Spider-Man. And that first movie with Tobey Maguire was so great because you really sort of get that underdog nerd story where he, he's bigger than the sort of sum of his parts, even though some of his parts are nerdy, And
what parts are we talking about?
Just mainly his dick. His web slinger.
Yeah.
It's very nerdy.
Which thankfully does not anatomically work like a spider.
Oh, heavens.
He's just swinging by his ass everywhere.
Whip.
Yeah.
Well, but Cory, I guess the point I was trying to make was less about how good the Star Wars films were and more about introducing them to a new generation of people, right? Because there were some of us who were fans of the original Star Wars that somehow people completely forgot about the original trilogy. If you can even just fathom that possibility, there are people who had never seen the originals when the prequels came out, and I wanted to kill every single one of those people.
But so it's like two lanes of the same highway, right? So you have like the acceptance of nerdy things in pop culture, and then you have like the depiction of nerds, representation, absolutely, of nerds in popular culture, and those sort of start to meld together. And I think this sort of like, that crossover moment is for me Spider-Man. That first one, it was so good, and that's why the other 2 and 3 were very disappointing because they lost some of that zeal. That really made you want to root for Peter Parker, but.
They also didn't have the Macho Man Randy Savage in them either, which
got you for 3 minutes.
No, that's valid.
God, I love that guy.
And which that whole moment too, you have the nerd literally beating Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah.
Oh,
he's literally beating the jock. And then still not over the fact the whole like the tray scene, he actually is catching all of that shit on the tray. Like there's no wire guiding, there's nothing. He's literally catching all that. Is awesome.
It's quite amazing. It's too bad that Tobey Maguire is a douchebag.
Yeah,
in real life.
Yeah, but to be honest, going back to a movie,
I really want to be a fan.
Going back to a movie that actually brought nerd culture out, it's actually the original Batman. The Batman the original, the Michael Keaton Batman, with. Okay, I always is it Jack Nicholson or Jack Nicholas? Which is the golfer? Come on,
Nicholson.
Yeah.
Okay, Jack Nicholson.
Actually, Jeff.
Well, as much as I love his acting, I always get his name wrong, dude. I always put the golfer's name in.
This is how you can remember it, Jeff. This is Nicholson. Okay, he looks like this all the time. That's the
Mark,
man.
you're forgetting that this is a podcast. No one
He can see me. He can see me. Okay,
for the listeners, that worked.
Yeah.
It's
okay. When I edit this, I will like take a screenshot of Mark's face, and that will be the video on YouTube.
Yeah, scare the viewers again because they need to see my just horrible, haunting face. They need to see it.
well, that original Batman. I don't know if anybody that was alive at that time remembers the lines that went around the buildings of every single theater when that came out. It was like you could not get a ticket to see that movie, and no real big comic book movie had come out before that. Like that was one that launched everybody doing a comic book movie. So
the exception of Superman, though. The exception of Superman.
Superman hadn't come out until since like what?
The 70s
or something.
Yeah, and then I think Superman 4 was like maybe 86.
But that one was
probably
shitty.
Earlier. Yeah,
that
it wasn't good.
That was like the one that
good.
Even the Richard Pryor Superman had tanked. Superman 3 with Richard Pryor was terrible.
Yeah. Yep.
There's a fair amount of shade from jock types about how corny Superman was even back then, but like everybody wanted to go see Batman.
Yeah, well, I was hoping, Jeff, you're going to bring up the like that maybe Bruce Wayne was a bit of a nerd in that movie, solely for the part where there's the scene, there's the party scene, and then I'm forgetting the reporter, her name in that movie.
Vicky Vale or her
Vicky Vale,
played it.
Yep. Yeah. So Vicky Vale and her like photographer friend like sneak off to just explore the manor, and then they're looking at like all of the shit Bruce has in one room, and then they come to a samurai armor, and they're like, "Oh, this looks like it's from China," and then Bruce Wayne's like, "Actually, it's from Japan," and like, "Well, how do you know that?" He's like, "Because I bought it in Japan." Oh,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I'm forget his name, but
Michael
Mr. Mom. Mr.
Oh,
Mom,
Michael
yeah.
Keaton.
Michael
Michael
Keaton.
Yeah.
Mr. Mom plays that part very, very
Mhm.
funny and very dorky and very like his Bruce Wayne is not the same as like George Clooney's, where he's trying to make it all like
No.
debonair.
No.
It's super like
No
everyman.
nipples.
Yeah,
No,
he's oddly eccentric too.
Yeah.
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Oh,
Yeah.
like I'm not intimidated. I'm legitimately frightened by whatever it is that you're doing over there.
That's legit nuttiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's the manager of Bed Bath & Beyond, and if you live in Crown Heights, seriously, walk in pairs.
Yep.
Um,
but just
here-
remember to aim for the bushes.
but okay, so but you've got a good point, right? You've got this movie that really does launch some people into liking Batman, but the reason why I wanted to tie this to the early 2000s is because these properties aren't the only major things that are happening during these same years. Because when I think about nerd culture, what I think about is what we mentioned earlier with gatekeeping, right?
Mhm.
You've got people who are dedicated to accuracy that need to have it all the time as their way to prove or show their nerd cred, right?
Mhm.
And so this would be the time, though, when you think about breaking down some of those barriers, we start to get ways to do that. Because who remembers when Wikipedia first came out?
Wikipedia always just was.
I
For me.
agree. Hasn't it always just been there? I'm pretty
I
sure
think-
it's always just been there since
I think
the
it's my
beginning of time.
sophomore year where I was told I couldn't use it as a source because it was
oh,
probably
God.
wrong.
Wasn't
Yeah.
that so annoying in the beginning? They're like,
Terribly
you can't
annoying.
use that.
It's too easy to find the information, but it's
But
right.
I can use the 8-volume CD-ROMs of the Encyclopedia Britannica that we bought from a salesman. Like that's
Yeah,
incredible.
right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the shelf
Yeah.
and pick out a book because my parents had all of those stupid freaking
Oh my
books.
God. It's like a status symbol. My parents did the same thing. They still have it.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, those books
Yeah.
were outdated right after
They're
you
like,
bought them.
Man,
Yeah.
she is going to nail ACT, SATs. Like, it's going to be awesome.
You're just mad that this is easier now. That's all. That's why we can't use Wikipedia. Not
Honey, we
because it's
splurged on the
wrong.
Britannicas.
I think I use Wikipedia to learn how to ride a bike, so it's been around for a while.
There you go. There you
Well,
go.
I just like
Hey.
as a teacher, I always tell my students with like, hey, I don't care if you use Wikipedia, but do me a favor and do yourself a favor. When you find something you want to use, look at the links at the bottom of the page and just use those when you in
Yeah.
all of your other classes, and then you'll
Yeah.
be fine. No one will ever know that you just went to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Just so you know,
the
I
sources
have-
are there.
I have
Yeah.
legit changed Wikipedia to correct it multiple times, so
Well,
it is
sure.
easy to
Yeah.
change it.
It's a thing.
Well, hey, it was 2001, like the same time that Chad Kroeger was just punishing that Mike in the Spider-Man movie.
Which I'd
That's-
also like to point out that was my sophomore year.
Oh,
You are a Chad Kroeger fan. I can tell you are a
oh,
you are all
Jeez.
about.
Mark only believes that a hero can save us, and he's not going to
Oh.
stand here and wait.
no, I will not. I will not stand here and wait. Yes, and you know what? As soon as I found out that Chad Kroeger was part of that soundtrack, they sold me the whole seat, but I only needed the edge. So
Awesome.
now, looking at the rest of the technology, so this is what the point I was trying to make here is that technology kind of drives us into this modern nerd age, because now we don't have to read hundreds of comic books to get context for a specific character. The Wikipedia explosion, all of a sudden you've got all these different fan-made pages. People are putting this stuff on the internet now. You've got the emergence of G4, which some of us might remember, the now defunct video gaming network, which came back.
It did.
Oddly enough.
Mhm.
Yeah. And we would even have a thing called Justin.tv. Who remembers Justin.tv?
Vaguely remember Justin.
Yeah, I mean, it was
I don't
never.
remember it. Mm-mm.
It was never a sticker on one of the cars in Tokyo Drift, so I don't think it counts.
Well, hey, Justin.tv was the earliest known form of Twitch. Okay, people were just they're just putting, whatever
We're
they
watching
wanted to-
Justin.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, what's Justin doing? He's
YouTube,
Justin's moving quite vigorously. What's he doing there? Like that's what
Oh.
Justin TV was about. It was about people streaming whatever they wanted to, live streaming. So these technologies all came out very close together. YouTube would happen the next year, as you mentioned, Cory. Like YouTube wasn't even out when G4 first premiered.
Mhm.
So that's
YouTube
really
it's another one that feels like it's always just been there, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just remember when ads weren't there, you didn't have to pay for that feature.
It was just
Yeah,
David after
that-
dentist and
Yep, that's how old we are.
I mean,
Charlie Bit Fingers and
oh,
Oh,
yeah.
there's no ads.
Bet
Who needs
they.
ads?
I was thinking more about Chocolate Rain. Like, who can't think
Oh,
about
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Chocolate.
Or the
Plays on
Numa
me.
Numa guy.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
yes,
That actually predates YouTube.
it does.
Mhm.
The Numa Numa kid. Yeah.
Back when
but
you had
this,
to actually pay per view, like literally, like the people who hosted the videos had to pay every
Mhm.
time you watched their video.
It's true. And then I'm just thinking, like, thanks to YouTube, and we were talking about how like nerds are starting to become more accepted. Eventually, that kid who has both God and anime on his side starts to bring that back a little bit.
Well,
I would say that
Yeah.
the internet in general, the chat room, the AOL,
the message board,
Yeah.
the message board.
the connecting communities from across the globe, the like
Don't
shrinking
forget
of the globe.
Prodigy.
That the internet did.
Don't forget Prodigy from the
Prodigy.
Nerd
Oh, yeah.
games. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Though
Yeah,
that
Prodigy
has
and
just as big a cultural impact on widening the nerd scope.
Mhm.
For sure. Anyone can
So-
access anything, and you introduce yourself to new things that you maybe wouldn't have had a chance to be, introduced to in the
Mhm.
past, and you find out you like it. All of a sudden, you're a fucking
You also had
nerd.
movies.
Yeah.
Also, you had movies like Cory and I were really into this movie. You had movies like Hackers that
Yeah.
came
Oh,
out
God,
in
yeah.
the 90s.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Those movies were super big and they were all nerds, but the things they were doing were super nerdy, but they were cool at the time.
Cool nerds.
They were
Zero
were-
cool.
no, they were like they were
Hey.
playing on computers. They were rollerblading.
Yeah.
They were
And
having the
some-
sex. They were having the
Yeah.
sex. It happened in that movie.
Yeah.
They
So
had
yeah.
sex. Yeah.
they had
Yeah,
the
and
sex.
and in there they were super cool. And you're like, wait, these nerdy computer kids who are rollerblading through the city are actually cool? Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Since
They
when?
weren't.
How many conceptions happened because of rollerblades? It has to be off the charts. Yep. Honey, I'm done exercising. Get on in there. But you know what though? It's funny you would mention Hackers because we in our RPG series, we actually covered like the whole like RPG history, right? And one of the things that we talked about was that there used to be a day when a computer literally had its own zip code. Now we're in that same realm where PCs are on the rise. People are just able to access all this stuff or access rather. So that's why I think it's important to tie that together, because for me, that's where the corner really began. Because not long after that, we would start to get into things like the MCU, the DCEU, and
Mainstream.
yes, absolutely
Mhm.
mainstream for sure.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. I'll save that actually for later. But yeah, we'll come back to where my thought was that I didn't say out loud that I said I'd save for later. But it'll come around eventually. So let's go back to the
Fine.
conversation we were having before I said anything.
Just keep your secrets.
Well, I think what the larger point to make when it comes to superhero properties, just in general, is that most of the superheroes, especially on the Marvel side, they tend to just be humans with flaws that have superpowers, right? Like they're people who have either sometimes they have personality issues, sometimes it's alcoholism, as this is the case of Tony Stark. I mean, there are a lot of real problems that these characters
That is
have.
not a problem.
Just
kidding.
It's
I
only
mean,
a problem if you quit.
Yeah,
No.
you are talking to three Wisconsinites. Like we get it, man. But
You guys are all holding beer and brats, so like, yeah.
Yep, that's what we run on.
What do I do
Standard
with all
issue.
Entire recording. It's impressive.
How do I hold all these brats? That's just what I'm doing all day over here. But yeah, I really do think that was it, though. I mean, you start to get these epic stories that are coming out, and each one becomes just as digestible as the last one, and so they're not just interesting to nerd culture anymore. Now we've got all these gateways that help us further understand where these characters are coming from. And I don't know. I mean, there are characters in the MCU I didn't even know about that are getting introduced to me, and now I'm all of a sudden a fan of them. So it didn't even just advance, nerd culture in the sense of a pop culture oriented thing. It was even helping re-educate nerds, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Well, and there's so many facets to sort of nerddom or fandom, as we call it now, because it doesn't have a silent G. But like you can be a nerd in a million different ways.
Mhm.
Some people are MCU nerds, some are DCEU nerds, some people are anime nerds, some people are music nerds, some people are sports nerds. Like I always horror nerds. Yeah. I always laughed at the people who would criticize cosplay, but then paint their faces in sports teams, wear a jersey, and
Yeah.
wave a foam fingers. Like, you're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You think that your nerd thing is cooler than the cosplayer's nerd thing. But it's the same part of our brain that's sort of tapping into the things that we like, the community that we belong to, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I think what was really interesting about this like pop culture explosion, where now it's just an orgy of properties. Like, we don't even know who's touching who anymore. And now we're at the stage where, I mean, we nerds were underserved for so long, right? Like, there was a time where we couldn't even go out and buy a collectible because our property just didn't have the backing to do it.
Yep.
Like now it's actually to a point where I think you can actually buffet style this, because I mean, nerds are being marketed to in almost every way possible now.
Yeah, it's the large pool now. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's the huge demographic. Everybody who's like 18 to 35 now is some kind of a nerd. Easy to market to.
Oh yeah, and we're all peeing in that pool.
Hey, are we peeing in the pool, or are we peeing into the pool? Because those are two very different things. And
I guess it's what you're into.
location is a big determiner of how you're gonna get in trouble or not.
Yeah, I guess, what are you into, man? I'm not judging. Yeah, but ultimately, though,
you know what? Philosophical question. I'd like that just derailed me. Am I peeing in the pool, or am I peeing into the pool?
Yeah.
No. That's a good one. That's gonna wreck me for a week. I'm gonna ponder that. What am I in that scenario?
I guess to further make it worse, are people looking at me while I'm doing it? Am I looking at them while I'm peeing into this pool?
I want them
It's a community thing for sure. It's not like one person in the pool. No, there's 20
is there
people.
Only one person while everybody else is peeing into the pool, or is it
deeply
one person
personal?
outside
But you're all there together for sure. So people are watching. If that's a problem,
They definitely are. In which case, why is it that you're able to are you okay with people watching you while you're peeing in the pool, but you're not okay being watched elsewhere? What sort of weird stigma is that?
If this were a lake, this wouldn't be a problem.
That's right.
So next week, folks,
anyway, right?
Yeah. Next week, we're going to talk about our scenarios here that we didn't have enough time for, which is the just the art of peeing and what we're comfortable with. Here's what I want to do just to kind of begin to wrap up our journey. I'm actually interested in just doing a quick roundtable of everybody here about when did you kind of figure out you were a nerd? What was your earliest known origin story of being a nerd? And we'll let our guests start off. Cory, Jeff, you guys can kick this off.
Pressure's on you. Get it done, guys.
You want to go first, Jeff?
Go ahead, Cory. Cory, I know you got a lot to say about this, man.
So
make it sexy elegant.
There are stories of my early childhood where I actually said "actually, mom" as my first set of words. So I think it was ingrained. there are fables in my family history where it's like he would just sit in the back seat in his car seat and we would say something, he'd be like, actually mom, so yeah, I had nerd blood running through me early on. I think the first time I realized that I was nerdy, I guess, was probably in high school when I discovered sci-fi and I had a love for doing musical theater, and that sort of was the first time I felt outcast, I guess. Not necessarily bullied, but like snide remarks here and there was like, oh, you want to go be in a play? That's so feminine or whatever other label that I won't repeat. And it's like that's dumb. That's a dumb argument. It's just cool, and like I get to be a 50s gang member in New York.
Yeah.
Jumping and snapping, and like discovering those fun things where I realized that sort of nerd was a negative thing, that the things that I could be into, comic book related or movie related or even, like I said, musical theater related. I'm huge into musical theater, love it still to this day. Like Schmigadoon is a dream come true television show that I've been waiting for my entire life to be on a streaming service. So yeah, like I think high school, like junior high school is when those interests started to clash with the social rise of one's character, and that's when I realized that I was nerdy, even though I still sort of crossed over in more popular circles because I was an athlete in high school, but then I was also in musical theater. I was in choir, but then I was also I lettered in varsity sports. I knew all of the popular kids by first name, which was a real badge of honor in high school. So yeah, like that for me is like when I realized I was nerdy. But I mean, I had more fun hanging with Jeff talking about stupid movies and watching Biodome for 800 viewings when we were in high school, more than I enjoyed like trying to get invited to a kegger as a high schooler. Like fuck that. We would have an older brother buy us wine coolers and we'd watch Biodome for hours. Nerds, it's fine, like
yeah.
Get us a case of Hornsby's. And, Teen Dream.
Nice. It's awesome. Jeff, what about you?
Well, unfortunately, I never when I was younger read a comic book. Now I feel kind of sad about that. But so I was a nerd in a different way. So I was an athlete when I was younger. And then when I got to high school, I got kicked off the golf team. I don't know how many people can say that, but I got kicked off the golf team.
It's pretty nerdy to be on the golf team.
Yeah. I got actually kicked off the golf team because of my commitment to my punk band that I was in.
Oh.
So because I didn't have any commitment to a golf and so go to golf, so that was probably you don't have enough commitment to an athletic sport that's already nerdy. So, that's kind of where I figured it out, that my life was music and like a punk band that, never really made it. So,
But they were awesome, Jeff. It's an awesome punk band.
Yeah, that's probably where it is.
The band's going to make it, man. It really is.
One of these days.
It's going to make it.
I haven't played in that band for like 15 years, but yeah, it's going to make it.
I mean, there'll be a reunion tour. We're waiting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Queen was on a hiatus before they did their best, their most well-known show. So, like, I mean, don't ever lose that spark, man. Seriously.
Well, as you guys can see from behind me, I still have all my shit.
I was going to say, the drum set back there, right? Yeah.
All right, Chelsea Joe, why don't you hit us with your earliest remembered, I guess, gateway to nerd culture?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess as we've shared in the past too, I kind of grew up playing video games from a very young age, and I probably had a little bit of a different experience though, because I don't know if I was outwardly like nerdy. It was kind of like a closet nerd, I guess you would say. If you knew me in school, you probably really wouldn't have any idea that I was like home playing any of these games or like reading these different books or watching the History Channel or, doing like things like that. And I guess eventually I just stopped caring, and I went to a very small school. So in a small school, you kind of know everybody, you get involved pretty much in anything you want to do. So I was in, choir, theater, soccer, baseball, softball, like all sorts of different sports, things like that. And I guess the first time that in my head, I have like a clear memory of taking some heat for doing something at school that was pretty nerdy was me and my high school boyfriend. It's like our senior year and classes are pretty much over. We're just last couple of weeks of school fucking around. And so we both brought our Game Boys to school and we were each playing Pokemon. And at first, like a couple of people are like, oh, you guys, you're such a nerd. Like, oh my God, I can't believe you're doing that. But then like before you know it, we have a crowd of people standing around us, like watching us play fucking Pokemon on the Game Boy, and no one give a fuck. They were like, oh yeah, that's really cool. I wish I still played, just different things like that. So I guess that was my experience with the first time taking some heat for being a nerd, but then also experiencing the flip side of people being like, oh, that's really cool that you can just be comfortable with it. And that makes me comfortable to maybe have, for them to be a little nerdy too. So then it's all downhill from there for me. I was pretty out and proud about it ever since. So yeah.
All right, Joe, hit us with it. What do you got, Joe?
Well, I mean, I like have read comics and like stuck with cartoons like ever since I was small. I never stopped doing the two of those. And I think like, I don't know, me coming to realization of it was at a very young age when I noticed like basically all of my friends but one had like stopped liking like Power Rangers and Transformers and all the other stuff that I loved growing up. And like, no, we just do sports now. And that's all we do. I'm like, okay, I still like Power Rangers, but that's cool. And like, I don't know, like I kind of rode like a quiet nerddom through like middle school and into high school. And I always had I got a close like group of friends in high school they hung out with all the time. And we would get drunk and watch movies and turn the volume all the way down and dub over them with just nerdy and terrible commentary. And that's what we would do to have fun. And I think like the biggest like outright display I just did in high school was probably my junior year. We did like a homecoming color day thing, and like we had blue, so I just came in like full Superman suit and wore that to school the entire day. Nice. And then people loved it. They were fine with it. They were cool. I was like jumping around on the tables in the chemistry room. The teacher thought it was great. So I didn't get in trouble for it. And that's probably like my most like outright thing. I was also like in a play that year where I had 3 different parts in it because the director just wanted 3 different roles. And they're like, yeah, you could do all 3 of these characters. You just do them. Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. And then like the students who like my friends who saw that, they like, we had no idea that you liked doing this. I'm like, that's because I got stuck doing lame like Catholic school plays my entire life growing up. So
you're a white Eddie Murphy over there.
Yeah, I mean that's one way to put it. I'm like a nutty professor of a bad high school play. But yeah, no, I've always been a nerd. I never stopped. I had to quietly play Pokemon for the longest time until college, and then I met Chelsea, and we're like,
see,
Pokemon's back.
I'm normalizing shit.
Was he the high school boyfriend?
No,
was he the high school
no.
That would have been a great turn of events, man. if you like kept him like as like the boyfriend, but then he was like, oh yeah, I was playing with this girl like Pokemon, and then you reveal like that she's the actual girlfriend. That would have been so good for
solid like movie moment. But like I think I don't think we ever would have been in high school at the same time because I'm what 5 years older than you, something like that.
Well, you could have failed a bunch of times.
I could have failed a lot. Yeah.
No child left behind.
I think you would have been a senior when I was a freshman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's great.
All right, that brings us to Mark.
Yeah, it kind of it dawned on me because just like Cory, I was in sports. I was the football captain my senior year of high school, so I was always known for my testosterone and the ability to have to fight people physically, which I was tempered in my youth. I got better. I found out that I was a nerd at a much earlier age, though, because my brothers and I literally came together, and I was like 4 years old, and we were collecting aluminum cans to buy our first Nintendo. And I realized, like at that age, it's like I put all this effort and time into like buying video games.
Mhm.
And it was like, holy shit. Like, and it kind of blossomed from there. I became a movie geek or a movie nerd. Not long after that, I was memorizing every line to get my hands on, memorizing every director, every artist. We talked about this in video games. I would remember the actual people who made the games. I had to consume everything. But really when it hit home for me, it was actually in high school when I hadn't played the Super Nintendo in several years. This was like the early 2000s, and I finally decided to go buy a Super Nintendo because I didn't know where my other one was. So as I'm driving up to this used video game store, I'm actually hyperventilating because I am that excited to be able to play the Super Nintendo again. I'm hyperventilating. My friends can even say this. They're like, yeah, this dude was fucking losing his goddamn mind.
I'm just certain you're sweating for days too on that ride over there.
Yeah, I had to wring my underwear out on the way over, man. It was just horrible. So anyway, the moment that I'm building up to is we buy Super Mario World, and my friends are all like playing it. They're having a great time, but then we get to the bonus levels. Ooh, people are getting upset. People are like, God, I can't fucking beat this. This is so goddamn hard.
Move.
Pretty much.
Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, as the Asian representative in this place, we were voted #1 nerds in the 2010
in 2010
study.
Nerd prime over here.
Well,
Asian American hipsters. It's your
Asian American
classic.
hipsters.
Yeah.
Seriously, I was playing all the bonus levels like fucking Hawkeye, not even looking, just shooting arrows off into nowhere. Like I was just hitting the buttons. I'm sliding through things. I'm hitting.
You're about to hit the kill screen.
Oh, dude, it was. I after I did that, like it was like programming. It was just there. It was in the DNA at that point. I probably passed it on to my kid somehow, and I was like, "Yep, there is no way for me to get away from this. This is it's there. It's not going away." And so I really accepted it in high school. That's what happened for me.
You talk about the SNES. It reminded me of like how many nights or days did we spend, Jeff, playing like Addams Family on the SNES, or a slew of other like really like off the wall.
For some reason,
just cranking Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill. In my room. Like who are those kids?
Yeah,
like,
and I gotta say
ride your bike. Like we're playing video games, Mom. Shut up.
For some reason, the funny thing about Cory here is that we were really, really into music. So me, for maybe opposed to some of you guys differently, is I was a music fandom before anything. Like I knew every artist, every band, anything. For some reason, Cory always, and I always joke about him. I always joke about this with Cory. So this is nothing new for him. He would always have, when a band would come out with like back when CDs were a thing, bands would come out with their sophomore effort. It was the one that have like the follow up to their really good album. So you'd have like Green Day came out with Dookie. And then their album that came out after that was like Insomniac, which nobody remembers anything off that. Well, or they had. So Cory always had that sophomore album, the one that nobody really knew.
Sophomore albums,
like his entire CD collection was sophomore albums. So every memory I have is being at Cory's house listening to a sophomore album, playing NES. It was like whatever sophomore album.
The one exception being Jagged Little Pill, and so we played Jagged Little Pill nonstop because it wasn't a Debbie Downer of a of a second offering
Exactly.
from a band.
Exactly.
What's interesting about that, Jeff, though, is I was at that point, like Jeff's a couple years older than I am, and he's sort of always kind of been that like bigger brother that I looked up to, growing up. And so
I was
think,
super cool.
yeah, I think all of the sophomore albums and stuff were me trying to sort of like tag onto, because all of those original albums from all of those artists I was introduced to because Jeff had all those albums. Well, I didn't need to buy those albums because I was always with Jeff, and we could throw on any one of those CDs or any of those cassette tapes at any time. So, I
don't think I had cassette tapes.
No, I had cassette tapes, but like, yeah, I like the visceral.
Yeah.
I mean, I still have my copy of the Ghostbusters 2 soundtrack on cassette.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who are you gonna call?
And speaking of sophomore albums and Nickelback, I still have The Long Road.
Good God.
That's
Released-
3 references to Nickelback. That's awesome.
Released
Is it
September
though?
of 2003.
No, that's why it's awesome.
At least he leans in.
Yep.
Yes.
What the hell did Nickelback ever do? They just made music that they loved. We rip on them for it.
They're just growing up there with their bedazzled jeans and their, dyed hair and just screaming it out loud.
Just putting
all
on a
night,
show.
Man,
They have one song that's really what's it called? It makes you kind of cringe worthy. It's that song. I think it's called Animal.
No,
Yes, Animals.
Yeah.
Wow, everybody
very
primed up
cringy.
on that. Like everybody knows Nickelback songs. I have no idea. I have like 2 Nickelback songs in my brain.
No way.
That's
If
it.
we started playing them, you'd
That
know a
was
lot
amazing.
more than that
they-
because they somehow make it to the radio every
do.
freaking time.
That makes
And
me
Cory,
real
they
sad.
actually have the greatest drum sound of any recorded artist.
All right. Well, now we're
I use
getting
it for
into,
for
music
sampling when I
production nerding.
record something, but shut up.
Well, tell you what, guys, Cory, Jeff, you guys have been awesome. I am so happy we're finally able to get you on the show. We're going to let you guys end off with the last question. So, obviously, with pop culture, trends come and go. What do you think about nerd culture staying in the limelight now, as opposed to the periphery?
You know what? I actually think it's getting exploitative. Exploitative. I think exploitative. Okay. I think it's getting to the point where
Bueller?
I think it's getting to the point where if you don't have something nerdy in your show, if you don't have somebody who is using some kind of nerd culture fandom in your show, it's not going to be your show's not going to get bought. It's not going to get picked up. Your show has to be at a Comic-Con. Now, obviously, we're in a pandemic, but if your show wants to get publicity, they have to be at a Comic-Con, WonderCon, something like that in order to get the publicity they need. So I think it's getting to the point where they need to use the fandom and the nerd culture to actually push the agenda of more corporate entities and stuff. And I think that's where it's going at this point. I think it's going beyond what people actually think as pure, which is the comic books, the all the lore and the source material. And I think it's going a little past that.
Like commercialized nerd culture.
Perfect. Commercialized nerd culture. That's what I think.
I don't know. I think the concept of sort of nerddom being sort of like left of center in general, there's always going to be some sort of subset of people that are, just outside of that pop culture zenith,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think representation, I don't think that we're going to sort of go away from the underdog story. I mean, that's a tale as old as time. Like specifically calling it nerd, that might fade, specifically being, like suspenders and out, like take off the glasses. Like, I think that has already faded a bit. As far as, like the depiction of a nerd, I think that was a sort of fad, but I don't think that the core story of like, you finding yourself in a community of people that share like things, or that you find a reason to, join a group or join a fight or join a cause or something like that. Like that's at its core the same thing that nerd being a nerd is, right? Like you find that one thing that really scratches your itch. I don't think that's ever going to go away. That's permanent. I think that it's become in vogue to call that sort of, nerdy, and people wear that now finally the way that the guys at MIT, wanted it to be. Like if you're nerdy now, like how many podcasts out there exist right now? And it's all just a bunch of us nerds, sitting around talking to each other about the things that make us tick, the things that we love,
Well, you have like guys like Chuck on the show, Chuck, who's dating Yvonne Stroyevsky. I mean, come on. Hello. Like she's like one of the hottest chicks on television. You've got the
he was also a
Chuck.
super spy, so that helped.
Yeah, come on. He was a nerd. He was a nerd. He worked for the
nerd. Yeah, so like but I agree with
it was called the Nerd Herd, man. He worked for the Nerd Herd.
Yeah, I think it is becoming exploited to a bit to where like that is going to fall off. It's going to reach a permanent, or not a permanent, like a big bubble that's going to burst, and then suddenly it's not going to be quite as in vogue to be a nerd. But the core of what it is to be a nerd, I think, will always be sort of tried and true. So like that's not a fad, because that predates the term nerd, and it will live on far beyond. Like there's always, you got to find your little corner of the world and hope that there are a few other people that you can talk to it about it. And then there's the internet. So like, I don't know. The internet helps you stuff not die, because like give it 3 years and somebody will find it nostalgic, or, it'll, make another round on a streaming service or whatever new technology there's going to be in 30 years, the mediums will find a way into a new audience, and it'll recycle back over again, So yeah, I don't think it's gonna like die. I think that it will probably sort of lose a bit of steam, as far as like the marketability eventually, but I don't see that anytime soon.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you in your assessments of this. The thing that I think we're starting to reach with and maybe not saying nerd culture anymore, maybe just saying mainstream superheroes and these blockbusters, where I think we're already reaching that point where people aren't appreciating them the same way that they did in maybe a phase 3 or maybe even phase 2 of like the Marvel movies, right? And so the oversaturation, I think, has absolutely already been reached. So maybe I actually do think in the near future we're going to have to tear things back down and build them back up. Just like we had to do for the Nickelback fan club that I run on Twitter. We're going to be covering All the Right Reasons and Dark Horse, the 2005 and 2008 follow-ups. So more coming at you.
Well, that's the 4th time we brought Nickelback up, and I believe that is what kickstarts the apocalypse. So good job, Mark.
Chad Kroger's just going to show up on this podcast.
Yeah.
God, I hope so.
Man, that was a lot of fun. Not gonna lie, really, really enjoyed this one today. Just talking with these guys from the other podcast, Switch the Envelope. I felt like we've been friends for a much longer time than the correspondence that we had to get them to come onto the show and the show itself. That's all we've talked to them, and I want to change that, have them back, and to talk about kind of anything, really anything. Because this going through the evolution was fun, but really I think what I really enjoyed is hearing all of the personal stories that we got to share today of our experience of basically being nerds, knowing we're nerds, closeting it up a little bit, and then really thriving and living our best nerd lives that we can in the current climate that is social structure.
I totally agree with you on that. And I mean, it is very refreshing to see that we all come from different walks of life, but yeah, somehow we managed to experience the exact same things in nerd culture. So definitely big thank you to Jeff and Cory of Switch the Envelope. We really appreciate having you guys on, and you're welcome back anytime. I mean, trust me, we've already got the carpet cleaners. They've been here, so we're good to go for another week. But hey, for those of you who got here by accident, I know we say this every week, but seriously, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review if you liked us that much. We want to hear from you. We like people. We really do. Otherwise, we don't say this all the time, but You can also email us at digitaldissectionpodcast@gmail.com. That email does work. We look at it. And otherwise, if you want to stay buckled in, as we mentioned, if that seatbelt is still fastened, come on back next week. We're going to be talking to our friend Kevin, the film critic, and he's going to walk us through Ready Player One. We're going to break down the Steven Spielberg-led film and just find out, are we in an oasis? Or are we still waiting for one? And until next time, keep on dissecting.
Chelsea?